My name is Bob Kemerait. I am the extension plant pathologist, nematologist for row crops, corn, cotton, soybeans, and peanuts at the University of Georgia. And I appreciate you all being in here very much to go over this afternoon. If you haven't, you already heard me say it, but we got an hour's worth of credit for commercial or private applicator license, so that'll be up there as well. What I want to do is go over what I think are the most important aspects of disease nematode management for 2019. Okay? I pride myself on believing that what I tell growers is something that they're going to use, they're going to remember, they're going to make decisions by. And I think that's probably true with extension. But what I've also come to realize, and been told a number of times, is the person most influential in what a grower does or doesn't do as far as decisions is the last person they talk to before they buy a jug of chemistry, before they buy some seed. It may be their distributor, it may be the salesperson, it may be the consultant, it may be the county agent, but it's not me. Why is that? I'll talk to growers today. They're going to be making decisions 2 months from now. There's going to be a lot of people that talk to them between now and when they make the decision. So what's the importance of a talk like this? What I think is the most important? The first thing is to let the growers and anybody else know what we believe are the most important decision processes they have to make. What are the most important issues in the world of diseases and nematodes for 2019? The second most important thing is to update them on what is available. If I tell you that root knot nematodes are a problem, then I better be able to tell you what we're going to do about it, what we recommend for it. That's number two. And the third thing is to let you know that the information that's available through UGA Extension, through your local extension office, is research-based, non-replicated, non-biased. Okay? So hopefully you can use that as we go through. Now when I talk about cotton today, here's the points I want to cover. Here's the points, if you remember nothing when you walk out of here, here's what I think are going to be the issues in 2019 in my area, which is diseases and nematodes. And nematodes will be, and they continue to be, the most important widespread. Get here on time. I can't wait. We got people in here wanting to learn something. Please have a seat. Not everybody can walk in like, come on, oh, he had a better offer somewhere else. All right? So what I think is overall, not on every field basis, but overall in the state, I think parasitic nematodes are probably the most important problem within my world. We'll talk about target spot on cotton. We'll talk about Fusarium Wilt, Bacterial Blight, areola mildew, Seedling disease, and a new virus. Okay? I say it's a new virus, it's a newly recognized virus. Until 2018, 2019, in Georgia, we were unaware that a virus that's going by several different names now, we're trying to define what the exact name is, and they're even renaming a virus over it, but it's here, and we're going to talk about that. Okay? These are things that we think are most important to be aware of, and also that as a grower goes into the season, they can make the right decisions. I think the most simple message I want to have is, for many of these things, you get one chance to do it right. One chance. If you don't make the right decision, you can't go back and fix it. If you're late in making the right decision, it may not be beneficial anymore. There's a lot of talk these days. In fact, I'm happy to see my USDA colleagues out there. There's a lot of talk these days about building walls or not building walls, or how we're going to pay for walls. Okay? Well, I want to use that mindset. I think the biggest benefit for me and what I train growers on is to think about walls. Because in truth, the way we're going to protect against diseases and nematodes in the cotton crop is to build a wall. Is to build a wall to wall off the bad guys from attacking the good guys. And the good guys is the seed and the young plant, the developing plant, and the leaves and the fruit. Okay? But that's not the kind of wall I want right there. Okay, that may be the type of wall they're talking about in the Mexican, Texas, Arizona border, but that's the kind of wall I want. What I'm trying to get an image into growers is I want to think about building a solid brick wall that separates and protects the young plants, the seed, the developing plants from the pathogens and from the nematodes. Okay? That's what I want in their mind is how do we build a brick wall that's going to be able to do that? Now, this kind of wall. That wall, 90% of it's there. Most of the wall is there. But where you're missing bricks in my mental image, when I'm talking about building a wall for pathogens, that says you missed a spray. You didn't do something you should have done. You were late in doing something. Every time we do something or don't do something that's either late or we don't do it at all, that leaves a hole in this wall. And what that does is it lets the pathogens, it lets the diseases, it lets the nematodes in. Even if you got the rest of the walls good, you leave yourself open. Jeremy, this class started at 2 o'clock. Okay? Just come on in, all right? Have a seat. Try not to disturb anybody. Okay? Even worse than that, even worse than having holes in the wall is the idea, and this is a wall in Bridgeboro. If you've never been to Bridgeboro, don't blink. But this is in Bridgeboro. Okay? And the foundation of this wall has turned to sand for some reason. You could take your finger and you could. But what's happened there is the bricks are falling out. Up here, strong wall. Down below, if the foundation is not set, the rest of the wall is impacted. Okay? And what this is in my mind is if you don't make the decisions early in the season to protect against nematodes or to protect against seedling disease and some of the other things, you can never recover from that. The remainder of the season, you're trying to grow a crop. You're trying, in my analogy, you're trying to build a wall when your foundation's crumbling. Okay? That's what I want the growers to think about. We need a wall. We need a strong wall. We got to have a good foundation. We got to keep the holes out. Now, my wall is kind of a simplification. Okay? It's not the same, and protecting a crop is not the same as protecting or building a wall with immigration in mind. Okay? Why not? The first thing is this. As a cotton farmer, from the time you put the seed in the ground, from the time the seed is in the ground, it is in a hostile environment. The pathogens are there, the diseases are there, the nematodes are there. We have to start building, we have to start protecting immediately, if not before we put it in there. The second thing is this. The list of bad guys continues to grow. As the cotton crop grows, you not only have nematodes, you not only have the seedling disease, you start to get the bacteria. Now we've got a virus, you start to get the fungal diseases. We have to continue to protect against it. And most important is the last one there. You can't go back. This is what I tell growers at every meeting so far. You can't go back. You get one decision or one opportunity. If you have 2 opportunities in the 2019 season to fight seedling disease, what does that mean? If you have 2 opportunities to fight seedling disease, what does that mean in a field? It means you had to replant. It means you had to replant. We don't want that. Okay? So the wall I'm talking about has got to be continued developed. We've got to have a good foundation. Okay? What's the ammunition? What are the bullets I want growers to take away with, consultants, whoever? Okay? First off, we're going to talk a little bit about the weather climate patterns. It rained yesterday. It's going to rain next week. Some of the creeks we got are flooding over. We still got cotton in the field. All those things. Okay? Some of that, at least, can be attributed to a condition called El Nino. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about this new virus. And again, the virus name changes on a daily basis, but cotton leaf roll dwarf virus, we thought it was blue disease. It's a lot like blue disease. We're going to talk about what it may or may not mean. Recommendations for nematode management, Fusarium Wilt. It doesn't do any good to talk to people about a problem if we can't give them some help on how to fix it. Recommendations for foliar diseases. When I started in 2000, I did my first meeting like this in January of 2001. And all I talked about, it was a quick meeting, by the way, sorry, you're out of luck with me, is seedling disease. That's how much has changed. Some of the nematode aspects, the foliar disease aspects, the Fusarium Wilt. Over the past 20 years, tremendous amount of change in what we're doing. Recommendations for bacterial blight and other foliar diseases. Okay? Anything else you want to talk about? These 2 pictures. The picture on the left was taken in Mitchell County in January, about this time of 2018. The picture on the right was taken in the middle of December 2018, about a year apart. What a difference a year makes. What a difference a year makes. If we had cotton, think about all the cotton that's between here and Attapulgis, between here and Bainbridge that hasn't been picked yet. If that cotton, if the plants were still alive like they would have been last year, what would that mean? What would that mean? It would mean that virus would continue to build up. It would mean that nematodes continue to build up. Okay? The only good thing And unfortunately, we still got cotton in the field. The only good thing is that cotton has been killed by frost or cold temperatures. Okay? At least the nematodes, at least the viruses are not building up, even if we can't get it out of there. Okay? Even if we can't get it out of there. It takes 21 days from an egg to hatch, for a nematode egg to hatch, to go through the juvenile stages, to go through the adults, to a female that's laying eggs again. And if we're in a situation like that was, I think that was Colquitt County. I think that was Colquitt County a few years ago. And that would see, if it's in January and you've got that, the nematodes are continuing to build up. And that's not a good thing. Okay? I got a question last week. After they heard me talk, they said, well, I want to go out there and I want to pull nematode samples. I'm not sure what my nematode populations were. Will you help me? No, I won't help you. Okay? It's not I want to help you, but there's no sense in pulling nematode samples now. Why? We've killed back. We've got cold soil temperatures. The nematodes are not active. If you haven't pulled nematode samples already, it's too late in the winter of 2018-19 to get them. Why? Because the soils are suppressing them. In egg form, they're quiet. They're not doing much. Okay? This El Nino condition. Why talk about it? The reason we talk about El Nino is that over the next few months, or certainly into the early spring, we will continue to have a suppression of, or an effect on the jet stream, and we will continue to have wetter weather as we go forward. Okay? We continue to have likely chances. It's going to rain every day. We can't tell if it's going to rain every day, but when we look back on this year, this season, we're likely to have increases in wet weather, which is just probably what we don't need right now. But the conditions are favorable for that. Cooler and wetter. So why would I say to growers? When we're thinking about the first step is making wise management decisions for 2019 cotton crop, or any crop, is to recognize we are in a period of El Nino. El Nino periods typically are wetter and oftentimes cooler. Not always. You know, it could change. You call me a liar. Okay? But what I tell you is what I want growers to be aware of, the two biggest impacts. Okay? At the time of planting, chances are better than even that we're going to be cooler and wetter. Okay? At least in the early part of the planting season. From a seedling disease perspective, the best way to protect your crop if it's going to be cooler and wetter is to wait. At least wait a little while to try and make sure you got warmer soils. Warmer soils. Warmer soils increase the rate of germination, more vigorous cotton growth. That can help the growth, the cotton escape the seedling disease, and also escape some of the nematode problems, or make them less severe. Another thing is, if the soils are wet, I had a grower ask me the first period this morning. He says, I want to put out Telone as a fumigant for nematodes in March. If my soils are wet, am I wasting my money? And the answer is simply, yes, you are. Yes, you are. Why? Well, you're putting the right rate out, but if the soil conditions are not favorable, if it's too wet or too dry, you don't get the fumigation that you need. So planting date and use of things can be affected by this. If nothing else, it's important to be aware of it. I usually don't talk about seedling diseases. I was so happy when I got beyond seedling diseases I could talk about anything else but seedling diseases. But this is a year we should do it. This is a year we should do it. And again, how many chances do you get to protect your crop from seedling disease or rhizoctonia like this? If you have to do it more than once, it means something went wrong. When you cover that furrow, you have already decided on your planting date, your plant population, your seeding depth. You've decided on what kind of protectant you're going to use, just a seed treatment. Are you going to use in-furrow fungicides? I'll tell you this, that in 4 out of 5 years, based upon my research data, 4 out of 5 years, that seed treatment, that fungicide seed treatment that comes on your cotton seed that you don't pay anything extra for is enough. We don't see much benefit to anything extra. But I can't tell you what that 5th year is going to be. If I could tell you that 5th year, it'd be a good thing. But I can't tell you. We have to guess at when it's going to be. And cooler, wetter soils predispose us, set us up for problems. Okay? By the way, I'm glad to see all of y'all in here. I thought it'd be just me and the two of you all. Okay? In fact, I'm going to tell Stanley, I siphoned off a significant portion of his people out of his talk. Okay? Management of seedling diseases. The first thing with management of seedling diseases comes down to planting in warmer soils that suppress or that support rapid germination and growth. The second thing is we use seed treatments. Those seed treatments already come on the seed, but you can invest in extra seed treatments and you can invest in in-furrow fungicides. Okay? Why talk about it? You get one chance. 2019 may stack up to be that year where we wish we had extra protection, and when you cover the furrow, you can't do anything about it. In-furrow fungicides, something like azoxystrobin or Quadris or Abound, fairly inexpensive. More and more growers are set up for in-furrow treatments. Easy to put out. Extra seed treatments are the most convenient, but probably not quite as effective as in-furrow fungicides. Any questions on that? Any questions? Well, that's not new, Bob. No, it's not new, but given the year we're likely to go into, maybe something we should consider. All right? Much more important. But what do seedling diseases and nematodes share in common? What do they share in common? They share, most importantly in my world, they share in common is when you close the furrow, you have made most of the management decisions you can to truly impact nematodes or seedling disease. Okay? In these pictures, you do not need a soil sample to tell you what type of nematodes out there. What type of nematodes in those fields? Southern root knot nematode. And you do not need a soil sample to tell you that the level of nematodes in those fields is damaging to the point that they likely would benefit from Delone or a resistant variety. Okay? You don't have to have a soil sample to tell you that. But what's the benefit of a soil sample as well? The grower from this field was actually in the room this morning. Okay, this Washington County. It looked like nematodes. It acted like nematodes. They thought it might be nematodes, but when they looked at the roots, there were no galls on them. Okay? Went out there, well, it was nematodes, right? Root knot nematodes gives you gall. The reniform nematodes in this field do not give you galls. The sting nematodes do not give you galls. The lance nematodes don't give you galls. Okay? They were confused because they equated nematode damage to galls. That's only for the root knot nematode. So why is it important? Why does it matter if it's reniform nematode or root knot or sting nematodes in that field? They're nematodes. Let's just deal with them. Why does it matter what type it is? One of the most advanced and important ways to fight root knot nematodes is some of our newer resistant varieties. Okay? We don't have resistance yet to reniform nematode. We don't have resistance to the sting or the lance nematode. But we do have the root knot nematode. And in order to know if you can use resistant varieties, if you should use resistant varieties, if you can use resistant varieties, is you have to know is it root knot nematode. And if it's not, you may do something else. Now, these slides I went over quickly. If you're interested in rotation crops, plants susceptible to major nematodes in Georgia, you can look at that publication online. It will help you decide if I planted peanuts last year and I had a nematode problem like cotton 2 years ago, what's going to be the impact of the peanut crop on this year's? Okay? Or if I planted corn and I had reniform nematodes. I know corn's affected by the root knot nematode, but is it affected by the reniform nematode? This publication will help you make some management decisions. This second publication, when you do submit root knot, or when you submit soil samples, and you get your numbers back, this will help you in coordination with your consultants and with your ag agents. It will help you make a decision. I took this sample in August of 2018. It came back with 500 root knot nematodes. What do I do on cotton? I took this sample in December of 2018 and it came back with 1,700 ring nematodes. What do I do? Okay, comes back with ring nematodes, you don't worry about it. Comes back with 500 root knot nematodes. That's a problem. This will help you with that. Okay. Let's talk about the varieties. Okay. The varieties for 2019 rather, that I'm looking at here, and I've got another slide for 2019, but Phygen 480 and Delta Pine 1747 are good examples. They will be available in 2019. And I can promise you two things. If you got a root knot nematode field and you plant 480 or 1747 into those fields, you're going to do two things, I promise you. You're going to have less damage on the roots from the nematodes than if you planted a susceptible variety. Well, I like 1646, and that's what I'm going to plant. Well, if you plant that rather than 1747, you're going to have more nematode damage. And you're going to build the nematodes up. Well, I like 444 better than I like 480. Well, that's fine. I don't care. Okay? But if you plant the 444, you're not going to get the nematode benefits out of it. Okay? Next thing is this. 1747, 480, you plant them, you will reduce your nematode populations as if you had planted a non-host crop. You are reducing nematode populations for if you go in with cotton in the next year, your populations will be lower. But I can't guarantee you what the yield's going to be. All I can tell you is that when you use 1747 and 480, you do not need a nematicide in that field. Okay? Now, another big difference between 480 and 1747 is BB, and that's bacterial blight. 1747 is particularly susceptible to bacterial blight disease. If that disease is a problem, 1747 will show it. It's almost like a canary in a mine shaft. It's going to show it. Okay? 480 is resistant to both a nematode, root knot nematode, and a bacterial blight. Okay? That's a difference. The question is, how important is bacterial blight going to be? Almost in 2018, bacterial blight almost across the state was not much of a problem. It was a little bit, not like it was 2 years prior. Okay? But we can't say what 2019 is going to be. And these trials from 2017, some of Jared's data, if you can see, you don't have to be able to read. If you see red, that means it's in the top 5. Okay? If it's in black, it's not in the top 5. And if you look at the varieties that are up there, Stoneville 6182, Delta Pine 1538, Delta Pine 1646, Cropland Genetics 3885, those are oftentimes in the top 5. Well, my favorite variety on there is 1747. There's a lot of black there, isn't there? Okay? Great variety, Bob. But it was red in Wayne County. It was red in Jeff Davis County. It was red in Bullock County. In those 3 situations, it was one of the top varieties. What's different about those situations and everything else? That's where the nematodes were. Those were trials that had root knot nematodes. Put them in the right variety, right field, they'll work for you. Root knot nematode resistant varieties for 2019. In addition to the Delta Pine 1747, 350, 440, 480, 530, 580, 5-gen varieties that have resistance to the root knot nematode and to bacterial blight. Resistance to root knot nematode and bacterial blight. The ones I got the most have looked at, the 480 and the 580, I think will do very well. The other one should do fine as well. And also, Stoneville 5600's on there. What's the difference between the Phytogen and the 5600 from Stoneville? The Phytogen are bacterial blight resistant, the Stoneville is not. In making your management decision, what is the impact of nematodes and what's the risk of bacterial blight? Questions on that? Questions on that? In this trial in Colquitt County, here we had 1558, a root knot nematode resistant variety. We had 1646 without telone. We had 1646 with Aglogic. We had 1646 with telone. And this is nematode counts at the end of the year. Telone's an excellent material, an excellent way to protect yield. However, by the end of the season, you have just as many nematodes if you hadn't used it on a susceptible variety. The only way to knock those down is to use a root knot nematode resistant variety. Okay? That's value for next season. Okay? Questions on that? So managing them. The first thing you have to know is, do you have a nematode problem? And if you got a nematode problem, which type is it? If it's root knot nematode, we have the opportunity to use resistant varieties if we choose to. Okay? If it's not root knot nematode, if it's reniform sting or lance, we don't have any resistance, at least not yet. You're going to have to use a nematicide. If you want to plant a susceptible variety in a situation like this, you owe it to yourself to do something to protect the crop. The most convenient way, there is value in convenience. The most convenient way to fight nematodes is to use a seed treatment. Whether it's a Victa, whether it's Copio, whether it's BioST, whether it's Nemastrike. Well, I can't read that, Bob. You got this font too small. The important take-home message is these seed treatments are not exactly the same, but what I expect out of seed treatments is the same. If you've got a small problem with nematodes, if you've got a situation where you think you might be getting a problem with nematodes, seed treatment nematicides are probably going to be okay for you. They don't work well in moderately heavy situations. They'll disappoint you, but they are convenient. They are convenient. I've seen a lot of marketing. Every night when I turn on, it seems like every night, WAOB News At 11 o'clock news, and I turn that on, it seems more often than not, I see a Nematode commercial. Okay? I can't say about their data, but all I can say is be very careful when you're choosing your nematicides, and be very, very careful that your expectations are realistic for what that would do. Seed treatments can only do so much. If you're not going to use a seed treatment, you're not going to use a seed treatment because you got a problem with nematodes being above that. Telone. Telone is our most important nematicide in terms of efficacy. Fumigation with it. We already talked about telone in El Nino. If the soils are too wet, it's tough to get out. Telone is not cheap. Telone, they don't give it away. Telone is not convenient to put out. Telone is probably the opposite in every way from a seed treatment. But it's also much more effective. Much more effective. Some growers just won't put it out. Too inconvenient. Some growers can't get it. Some growers think it's too expensive, but it does important things. If you're not going to use telone, and you're not going to use a resistant variety, your other options would be the Ag-Logic and the gypsum formulation and the vellum total. Ag-Logic is the old Timic, aldicarb. It comes in, it's granular and gypsum formulation. The vellum total is a liquid formulation. Well, how do they compare? How do they compare? From my data from looking at them, 16 to 18 ounces of vellum total is approximately equal for nematode control, not necessarily thrips control, to 5 pounds of Ag-Logic. What do I expect over the total trials? About 5 pounds of Ag-Logic is about equal to 16 to 18 ounces of vellum total. Okay? Where does the vellum total shine? If you would prefer or you can't put out the granular application. If you got to put out a liquid, that shines. Where does the Ag-Logic shine? If you need more than 5 pounds or more than 18 ounces, you can bump the Ag-Logic up to 7 pounds. Okay? We're building a wall. We're walling off the nematodes as best we can. It may not be a perfect wall, but by choosing the product carefully and looking at it, we can do it. Okay? Now, last thing about this slide. To put out 3 gallons of telone is going to be somewhere between $60 and $75 an acre just for the product. To put out 5 pounds of Ag-Logic is going to be about $35 an acre. To put out 18 ounces of vellum total is going to be about $35. How much does it cost to put out resistant seed per acre for root knot nematodes? It's about $3 an acre. Okay? Price doesn't drive everything, but just realize the value you get is what's appropriate for your farm. Any questions on that? And just a cartoon with the logos that are out there. And again, we talked about telone, we got the vellum total and the Ag-Logic. We've got these seed treatments. Okay? Seed treatments are not exactly alike. There are differences. There's probably differences in efficacy, but they're more alike in efficacy than they are different. The only two I didn't talk about were Vidate and Return XL. Both the same active ingredient. There should be plenty of Vidate available. There should be plenty of the Return. If you close the furrow, about the only thing left that you can do to add on to your nematode control, it's not standalone, it's to increase your nematode control, is to use Vidate or the Return XL. So we're between the 5th and 7th true leaf stage. Okay? We don't typically see a lot of returns on it, a lot of, no pun intended, we don't typically see a lot of benefit from it. Okay? But it can be beneficial. Questions on that? Questions? Okay? 1646 in Bullitt County. If you've been to my talks before, you've seen this. 1646, from a Delta Pine standpoint, it's not fully resistant, but it's more resistant, more tolerant to bacterial blight than other varieties that Delta Pine has. This grower put that out because he wanted a high-yielding variety and he was concerned about bacterial blight. High-yielding variety and concerned about bacterial blight. What didn't he take into account? He didn't get bacterial blight, but that's what the nematode damage did to him. Okay? We've got to remember what's most important and what are we using and how can we protect the crop. Questions on that? Questions? I just want to make you, yes sir.
I have a question about bacterial blight. What conditions favor the development of bacterial blight? Why did we have it a couple years ago and not last year?
Good question. Good question. It is favored by, and you would have thought, I would have thought that last year would be a big year for it. Okay? I would have thought that it would be very much favored by rain splash conditions and spreading and the conditions and a lot of moisture out there. It wasn't. It wasn't. If you'll wait till I'll show you what I think is happening here in a minute. Okay? But bacterial blight is something we need to be aware of. We need to keep that in mind in variety selection especially, because that's the only way to manage it. But last year we saw it peak in 2015 and then 16. It was very bad in some areas. In 2017 and 2018, it wasn't as bad across the state. We'll talk about why that is. Great question. Okay, let's talk briefly about Fusarium Wilt. The belt, the Fusarium Wilt belt, if you will, that's the area, more of a sandy soils, flatwood soils. This disease always goes hand in hand with nematodes. It's almost always associated with sting nematodes in Georgia. But I can show you fields as far up as just of Oconee County. I can show you where we got some Fusarium Wilt. All I want you to do, or all I want growers to do, is recognize the symptoms. The symptoms are this vascular discoloration when you split the stalk, and this tiger striping, stunted plants that can come out of it. It's typically associated with, or it's associated with the Fusarium and also with some of the nematodes that are out there. Okay? Why do I want you to be aware of it? Why do I want growers to be aware of it? Because it can be very difficult to control. It has a seedling disease aspect to it, or can look like seedling disease. One of the problems is this rhizoc, is this Fusarium, this new virus can even affect the seedlings in some stages. The best thing to do is talk with your consultant, talk with your county agent. If you got lots of this or any of this in the field, let's get a diagnose what it is. Because if it is Fusarium wilt, we want to take actions to try and protect against it. Case on the right, that's telone versus no treatment. That's in 2008 or 2017 in Tift County. 2016 in Tatnall County, that's what the Velum Total did. The way we protect against this disease is to protect against the nematodes. We have to be careful with it. Any questions on that? Okay. Any questions? All right. Let's talk about foliar diseases. We're building a wall. You get one chance, one opportunity with seedling disease. You get basically one opportunity for variety selection and nematicide use for nematodes. That's laying a foundation. Can you imagine this? When you think about nematode management and seedling disease management, how long does a cotton season last? How many days? How many months? Long time. When you close that furrow, on the first day you plant, you have made almost every decision you can make to manage the nematodes and their seedling disease. And the rest of the season, you have to live with that decision. If it was a good decision, you're good to go. If it was a wrong decision, no matter how much fertility, how much irrigation, how much insecticide, how much herbicide you use, you're still having to deal with the decision you made all the way back in April or May. Okay? Now, there's other decisions that have to be made. There are other decisions that have to be made as we go along, and one of them is a disease called areolate mildew. Areolate mildew typically occurs every year south and east of I-75, or east of I-75. If you're in Pierce County, Georgia, if you're in Ware County, Georgia, if you're in Coffee County, Georgia, if you are in Atkinson County, Georgia, I see this as regularly as I see the sandhill cranes come back in the fall and leave in the spring. At some point, this disease is going to come in. And it comes in usually late, and it drops the leaves, and it doesn't cause that much problem. That was my world in 2017. In 2017, we got more and more questions about this. Looks a lot like powdery mildew. Areolate mildew is caused by a fungus. Areolate mildew has broken out of its home, or my thought that its home was in southeast Georgia. It certainly has spread across most of the coastal plain. It has spread, even Tom Allen, even the guy who gave you that hat, is talking about, and you take this how you want to, Brandon, but I've learned one thing in my 19 years here in cotton. Nothing in cotton matters until Mississippi says it does. That's about right. They get areolate mildew, and now it's a problem. Tom's crying. Okay? That's being recorded, so I hope he doesn't hear it. Okay? But
I think he would laugh.
But he probably would. Then he'd stick me. All right? So the areolate mildew has come across now. In the past couple years, it's been more widespread. Okay? It's been more widespread. And what I'm afraid of is now that it's established, as far as Oklahoma last year, what I'm afraid of is going to be in that crop debris. And if it's in that crop debris, I was hoping, Jeremy, that after 2017 it was an aberration. But there was as much or more of it last year as there was. Okay? The areola mildew, the question on areola mildew is not, can we control it? That's not the question, because the answer to that's an easy yes. The question is, should we control it? Should we control it? This was Appling County, 2007. This was a single application. The difference between this and that was a single application of headline. And it made all the difference. If we were selling leaves, we made a lot of money. Okay? The difference in lint there was very, very small. Barely enough, if even enough, to cover the cost of the fungicide. The question is not, can we control it? We can control it. The question is, should we control it? And here's the bottom line on that. When you look at the fungicides that are available, all of these fungicides are now available for sale. They're labeled on cotton. If we're talking about target spot, and this is one of the rare occasions where most people agree, the best material out there for target spot, we'll talk about it next, is Preaxor. Preaxor is the best material. It's not the only material. Headline's good on it. Quadracinase Oxystar are probably also fair, but Preaxor is the best. But if we're talking about areola mildew, we can get excellent control using Quadracinase Oxystar, azoxystrobin products. Why would we want to do that? If I say Preaxor is the best leaf spot material we got out there, why would we use this one? It's cost. It's cost. Okay? As long as you get out there. So the question now is, not can we control it, and now we know what we can use. The question is, should we control it? Jeremy did a trial last year in Colquitt County. Stephanie Hollifield did a trial in Brooks County. And looking at the data, there is a yield increase with the applications of fungicide. It's a yield increase in length and more than pays for the trip across the field in the application. So should we pull the trigger? Here's my recommendation for areola mildew. If you are within 4 weeks of defoliation, if you're within 4 weeks of defoliation, do not pull the trigger. If you've got a top crop up there that's already full size and hardened off, do not pull the trigger. You won't need it. If you're more than 4 weeks away from defoliation, or if that top crop is still developing, it's still soft, it's still small, that's when I would pull the trigger. If you go out there and areola mildew has dropped 60% of your leaves, do not pull the trigger. You're not going to slow it down. But if you're catching it, if your crop is young enough and you're seeing it come in, then it pays, I believe, to spray a fungicide. Can you spray Preaxor? Yes, you can. But if the only thing you're fighting is areola mildew, for me right now, it's a better choice. If you're fighting target spot and areola mildew, that's a better choice. Okay? Questions on that? Yes, Brandon.
Oh, up until recently, east of I-75, we haven't done many fungicide sprays. When I say recently,
Sure.
In the last 3 to 5 years. So are you worried about a particular fungus like target spot or areola building up a resistance to just a doxy type or TEB type that's not a double mode of action
Yes.
fungicide?
The question is,
How concerned are
I'm
you
extremely
with it?
concerned.
Okay.
I'm extremely concerned. The question is, Bob's saying that because azoxystrobin is a cheap fungicide, you could choose that preferentially over Preaxor. Okay? And that is true. But I also know that of all the fungicides we spray on our crops, there's probably none more prone to resistance than azoxystrobin. And what I would say is this. If we start to make more than, I heard growers yesterday at a meeting, they had sprayed they gotten recommendations to spray 3 times for areola mildew. And if you spray this product 3 times or even twice over a period of time with no different modes of action, we're going to lose that material for it. So absolutely, Brandon. Resistance management's a major concern. I'm looking right now to spray maybe once. Okay? But if we start spraying multiple times, we may not spray Preaxor, which is different modes of action, but we may alternate. We will have to rotate the chemistry. We will have to rotate it. Or this won't work anymore. Okay? Excellent question. Excellent. Okay? The other disease which is of importance out there is target spot. Target spot is different than the areola mildew. We've been watching this for about a dozen years now. It comes from the bottom. We know where it's going to. This is going to be a disease which is most important, where we have high yield potential, high growth, dense vegetative growth. Okay? That's where we typically see it. And when we talk about this disease, the fungicide that works the best is the Preaxor. The fungicide that works the best is the Preaxor. Do we get some benefit from azoxystrobin or Quadris? We do. But if you're going to go out there and fight the target spot, this fungicide. And there we're looking at as early as the first week of bloom, certainly around the third week of bloom. But again, the common denominator between areola mildew and this disease is having somebody scout for you. Having somebody watch for you. Because just to go out there and recreationally spray for areola mildew or for target spot may not make you more money and may increase the risk for resistance. Okay? Questions on that? To show you a little bit of data. Okay? These are trials from 2017, 2018. Attapulgus, Camilla. The yellow was not sprayed. This is our first ratings. This is the amount of defoliation. Yellow is unsprayed. Blue is a single application of Preaxor. Green is 2 applications. Okay? Yellow is untreated. Blue is a single application. Green is 2 applications. And then when we look at the second rating date, we can see that it continues. Yellow unsprayed, blue, green, we get value. Okay? And when we look at yields in those trials from 2017, untreated, this is seed cotton, untreated, 1 application, 2 applications. Untreated, 1 application, 2 applications of seed cotton. 2018, after we had the hurricane go through, untreated, single and double application. Okay? It does not pay everywhere all the time. But target spot can make a difference. And when we look at this, okay, this is trials from 2016 to 2017. Let me set it up for you. If you see a yellow bar, it was sprayed twice with Preaxor. If it's above the line, that's the amount of lint we made by spraying. If it's below the line, that's the difference between of a negative benefit. Okay? Negative benefit. I don't know, that's right. You actually made less lint. Okay? If it's an orange bar, that was sprayed 1 time. This bottom bar is the amount of lint you would have to make at 62-cent cotton to pay for that single application. This top bar is the amount of lint you would have to make at 62-cent cotton to pay for 2 applications and the trip across the field. So let's talk about it. In this trial, we lost 104 pounds of lint from the difference between where we sprayed and we didn't spray. This was after Hurricane Michael went through. After the hurricane went through, all bets were off. In this trial, we didn't have target spot. Target spot did not develop. If it doesn't develop, it doesn't pay to spray. But in every other situation, a single spray or a double spray made more cotton than you needed, significantly more cotton than you needed to pay for the spray. Okay? Simple as that. Questions? Let's talk about something you can't spray for. Let's talk about bacterial blight. Okay, Gail, you asked about bacterial blight. What conditions favor it? Conditions that favor it would have been, I would have thought last year would be a big year for it. Okay? I thought last year would have been a big year. We didn't see as much. Okay? But certainly wet conditions, and this bacteria is spread in rain splash. Rain splash from infected plants to other infected leaves. Okay? But the symptoms we have, the angular lesions, sometimes surrounded by a halo. What I call a lightning strike appearance. We can see what like a data punch card from back 40 years ago. Okay? You can see here, you can see the bull rot. It's certainly something that can be important. Okay? So what do I think? When you ask me what's happened to it, this is some of Terry Wheeler's data. Okay? Terry Wheeler's at Texas A&M. The red bar is Texas. The green bar is Mississippi. The blue bar is Georgia. This is the percent of the acreage planted to susceptible varieties. Varieties susceptible to bacterial blight. Up until 2009, only a small percentage of Georgia's acres was planted to bacterial blight susceptible varieties. Why? What was a giant variety through 2009? 555. And guess what? 555 had a strong resistance to bacterial blight. After we stopped planting bacterial blight, we had a large influx of new varieties coming in. But what percent of those that we planted were resistant to bacterial blight? By the time we got to 2012, nearly 90% of the cotton varieties we were planting in Georgia were susceptible. So whether we brought the virus in on the seed, whether it was coming in some other way, the thing that is absolutely true is whatever we were planted was going to be susceptible to it. And that continued through 2017. Your question is, what happened in 2018? Whether you're in Texas, or you're in Mississippi, or you're in Georgia, the percent of our acreage that's now planted to susceptible varieties is rapidly dropping off. Whether it's 5711, whether it's the varieties from Stoneville that got resistance, or all these phytogen varieties that are resistant, we're changing the landscape. And that's why I think, more than anything, I think we're taking the bacterial blight out of the equation, however it got here, by planting resistant varieties. Okay? What varieties can we plant? Okay? For 2018, I know it's not 2018, but these varieties are reported as resistant. Reported as resistant to 5711. These phytogen varieties, Stoneville varieties, these Delta Pine varieties, the 1646 is not resistant, but it's certainly tolerant. Certainly tolerant. For 2019, these phytogen varieties are all resistant to bacterial blight. The next gen varieties, the 4689 to 5711, are resistant to bacterial blight. Okay? Short answer, long answer to a short question. I think that we're seeing less and less because we are taking it more and more out of the equation. Okay? Last topic. Last topic. Okay? And that topic is this virus. Okay? It's a virus, I think today, and it could change. I call it the cotton leaf snap, crackle, pop virus. But right now they're causing, yesterday it was the cotton leaf roll dwarf virus, and today it's the cotton leaf crinkle virus, dwarf virus. Okay? I can tell you the name of it doesn't make a whole lot of difference to me. What I can tell you is this, that this, regardless of the name, regardless of exactly what the DNA of it is, it's vectored by aphids. Okay? It's vectored by aphids. The second thing I can tell you is that as far as the University of Georgia knows, this has been the first year, 2018 was the first year that we documented it was here. I can guarantee you it was here before, but it's the first year we documented it. 2018 was also the first year it was conclusively documented in Alabama. The symptoms we're looking at, Austin Hagen from Auburn, and I want to give Auburn, you can tell them I said, I give Auburn all the credit for tenacity, to identifying something that the rest of us weren't seeing. Why? Because it was appearing late, but they did it. I give them credit for that. This cotton plant out of Fairhope, Alabama. Not a single boll on it. Okay, this is a worst case situation. This is that same field. Here's Philip Roberts. You can look at that and you can see that at the top of the plant, you might have 20 nodes stacked in like this. Node after node, the nodes are about an inch tall. It stacks them in there, and no cotton. They call it the Krinkle Virus. Sometimes you have this crinkling appearance of the leaves. Sometimes you have misshapen or aborted blooms. You have aborted bolls, not much cotton. One of the most diagnostic things is what we're calling whips. And this is a symptom we're really focusing on now. You see the cotton in the lower part of the plant. Before infection apparently occurred, we're getting cotton production. But after the infection occurred, we're getting significant growth, short internodes, and no cotton. Okay? It looks terrible. It looks devastating. Does it worry me? Absolutely it worries me. Here's some regrowth cotton. Okay? Here's what I want you to remember. It's vectored by aphids. If you're going to build a wall and you say, I'm going to build this wall and I'm going to kill every aphid that comes into my field, and not a single aphid is going to come here, you're going to create more problems than you fix. We're not going to control this problem, at least not that I can tell, by controlling aphids, more than we already do. You're going to flare other problems. The second thing is, it is not clear at this point if there are any varieties which are more resistant or more susceptible to this virus. Okay? All we know is last year in Georgia, from a late season survey, when you see a yellow county, we confirmed, I didn't confirm, we helped collect the samples, but Sudeep, our new virologist, confirmed that we had the virus there across varieties. How many growers contacted me or my agents and said, I think I got a problem? Nobody. How many county agents contacted me and said, I'm thinking seeing something out there different? We got more important things to do late in the season. We just didn't see it. Okay? So it wasn't something which was so obvious from a yield standpoint or from a symptom standpoint. But we now know what to look for. The only thing I can encourage growers to do in 2019 to fight this disease, this virus, is to avoid planting your cotton any later than you have to. Okay? If you can plant in May or you want to go on vacation, you'll plant when you come back in June, you probably should plant before you go. The only consistent factor with having this virus at an incapacitating, at a deadly level, has been extremely late planted cotton. My feeling is we have been living with this cotton, living with this virus, and not even knowing it's out there for a long time. And when you look at these symptoms, you say, well, I know that's not true. There is no way that I would miss those symptoms. There's no way. This is typically sporadic in a field. A plant here, a plant there, a plant here, a plant there. Nobody's got time to worry about that. And it typically comes on, look at this, typically comes on so late in the season that nobody's worried about it. Okay? So we just have to pay attention. Don't plant late, and we'll have more information for you. What I want to finish up with. For the growers, what I want them to think about is how do we build that wall? And this wall, it has to be one that protects the cotton seed and the seedlings from the time we put it in the ground. What's a seedling disease? When you think seedling disease and nematodes, what do you think about? I want you to think about one chance. One chance. If you mess that up, you either replant or you live with the repercussions throughout the rest of the season, in spite of everything else you do. When you're building that wall, I want you to think, what are we going to do to protect that foliage? First thing is, do we need to? That aerial mildew. Some growers sprayed 3 times last year. I'm not going to second guess them, but I'm going to say it would be a hard decision for me, Brandon, to spray 3 times, especially with a single mode of action. Okay? Whether it's target spot, whether it's aerial mildew, the importance is being timely with our coverage. Okay? And the last thing is, variety selection is going to have a huge impact. Why less bacterial blight? I truly believe it's because with our variety selection now, with these companies bringing out more resistant varieties, the disease is becoming less important, regardless of how it got here. Okay? And the last thing is with this virus, what's the overall impact going to be? We don't know yet. But I can guarantee, and from a picture Scott Brown in the back showed me, I would guarantee you that we've had it since 2013. At least the symptoms were identical. And some of the consultants in South Alabama say we've been seeing this since 2007 and before. Okay? There it is. So, any questions for me? I'll stop there. Appreciate y'all coming in here. I thought I was going to be talking to myself, which I do sometimes. But I thought I'd be in here by myself. Any questions?
What about late season target spot?
Late season target spot.
Yeah, 6 week of bloom.
6 week of bloom. RJ asked that because RJ is the first person that I know of in the country who showed a yield benefit to spraying for target spot way back when he was in Thomas County. For the most part, I think up until the 6 week of bloom, RJ, I think we are, if you have good growth cotton and the disease has not spread too far, I think the 6 week of bloom, especially in states like Tennessee, that's when they start really thinking about it. For us, good growth, disease hasn't spread too far, I think we are still vulnerable and could benefit up to the 6 week of bloom. Beyond the 6 week of bloom, I wouldn't do it. Okay? Last thing is, if you need pesticide credits, private or commercial, they're here. Put down for the name of this course as being plant pathology. Okay? And I appreciate y'all being here.
Good talk. Everybody gets a free bag of 5711.
All right, good job. You sound like Mike Chasen. Have you ever heard him?
I have not.